And joining me now to discuss the wildfire situation in California and beyond is Captain Sean Doran with OCFA, the Orange County Fire Authority in Southern California. Captain Doran, thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon. We always appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, before we get to all the issues about wildfires, take a minute or so to tell us about what OCFA is, the fire authorities, what communities you serve, and then we're going to get into all the specifics.
Fantastic. All right, so I work for the Orange County Fire Authority, OCFA, down here in Orange County, California, and we serve 23 cities plus the unincorporated areas of the County of Orange. So approximately 1.9 million residents out of 78 fire stations. And that ranges from everything from the beach cities of Dana Point and San Clemente up into central Orange County with Santa Ana and Garden Grove, the canyons, Yorba Linda, all the way up to Buena Park and Seal Beach. We have a very wide area and a lot of diversity within Orange County where we're proud to serve.
And certainly you're not too busy. There's only about, what, 3 million people in Orange County, California, so not too bad. Okay, let's begin with the simplest of questions. Honestly speaking, Captain Doran, how bad is a wildfire situation in the Southland and the state? We hear a lot. Give me some perspective.
Well, every year is a different challenge, right? So we go back to the years of 2020 and 2021, where we saw some of the largest fires in the state, upwards of 1 million acres. And thankfully, looking back last year at 2022, in relative terms, it was a quieter year, especially for us here in Orange County. But the second part of that is, our job is to have, and our goal is to have those fires extinguished before they are the big news, before they are covered. And as a matter of fact, CalFire's goal is to keep 95% of wildland fires at 10 acres or less. So that's one of the metrics we try to work towards. So if you don't see the fires in the news, oftentimes doesn't mean they're not the starts that are happening, but hopefully we're also doing a better job at suppressing those. Every year we're dealing with the different challenges, of the environments and the way these fires start as well. So we had a pretty good start to our rainy season here, beautiful green hills, and we'll see how that plays out for the regrowth of the fuels, what we call vegetation on the hillsides for 2023.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. We are hearing in the news so much these days about, well, maybe the wildfires are happening far too often, right? Repeatedly during the year in some cases. It's not just fire season anymore. I hear folks saying, well, they happen more often than not. More acreage burned, more lives lost, more property destroyed. It's intensifying. Is that the way you perceive all of this?
It is. I've been in the fire service for about 18 years now. And I've seen a lot of change in the number of fires and the frequency of fires. And again, most notably, especially in 2020 and 2021, throughout the state and the West, was just the number of acres burning. Now, that's not the only metrics we use, though. We're here in what we call the WUI, or the Wildland Urban Interface. So we also look at the lives we're saving and the homes that we're defending and the businesses we're keeping open and the infrastructure we're protecting. So while we do see those big acre fires in other parts of the state and other parts of the West, we also have to remember that the delineation line, if you will, between humans and nature is getting more and more blurred. So our job is necessarily always the acreage number. We always have to focus on as well how we serve the community. And that goes back even before the fire starts with our community efforts and fire prevention, community risk reduction and such. So there's many layers to it. However, the big acre fires definitely make the news. And our job is try and get there before that and keep them suppressed. However, oftentimes we're dealing with the fuel, the weather, and topography all kind of combined. And those are formidable forces, if you will.
So with that said, getting to the specifics, what exactly does OCFA do? What do you do in terms of the wildfire mitigation? There's field mitigation, that brush clearance. As you mentioned, the wildland urban sprawl management. What exactly do you do?
Well, our big stress is the community is our number one partner in safety. And that comes in the form of individual education, HOA organization and education, working with our cities, counties, states, parks, all of us together, because it's not one single piece of that puzzle that prevents or reduces or mitigates the wildfire risk. So for us, we have a community risk reduction section, and within that section is a pre-fire management specialty. And their goal and their objective is to work with those communities, the HOAs, partner organizations, with our crews and equipment, which includes hand crews, heavy fire equipment such as dozers and masticators, and then even the volunteer organizations that get together and have possibly a brush clearing event and wood chipping event. So throughout the year, it's a multi-pronged effort, but it's definitely deeply entrenched with the community as our first and foremost partner.
Take me through some of those steps of exactly what you do, and then as important, what can we, the public, do? I'm always curious what we can do to mitigate risk. You know, how can we keep ourselves safer, I guess, related to fire prevention, Captain Doran?
Well, I appreciate you asking that, because where we live, lightning isn't necessarily the biggest starts of fires out here. You know, we live in a relatively benign climate in that regard. But however, humans remain the number one cause of fires in some regard. Does that mean somebody's lighting that fire intentionally? Not necessarily, but it could be using equipment, power equipment on a hot, windy day. It could be having a tow chain not secured properly as it creates sparks. It could be a problem with the car that creates a spark or a roadside fire. But at some point, that human element has touched so many of these starts to fires that we recognize we have a lot of work we can do to prevent that. One program that's been very successful for many agencies is called Ready, Set, Go. And what that does is it discusses the responsibility and the value of our community having buy-in with the preparation, everything from construction features to their homes, to eradication of plants, putting in proper plants, maintaining that, preparing for evacuations, and then when the time comes, actually evacuating. That's been a very successful program, and a lot of our community has had great feedback about the success of that now, and they realize we can make a difference doing this together.
Speaking of that success, it's not just the boots on the ground, your good folks over at OCFA keeping us safe and all their success to help us. You've got some very interesting technology, I want to say, that's helping you folks fight wildfires, right? It's not just the boots on the ground these days. You've got all kinds of cameras, you've got all kinds of technology, you've got all kinds of different things. Can you share with our audience some of that high-tech stuff you've got?
Absolutely. So, we are in a dynamic environment. And one thing we're not going to do is be left behind, because we can't just rely on old tactics to fight fires in this new environment. One of the programs is called FIRUS. It's a CalFire funded and Cal OES funded program that's had great success. It stands for Fire Integrated Real-Time Intelligence System. And that is basically, at certain points, a plane flying these disasters. It can be fires, it can be debris flows, it could be oil slicks, but having actual intelligence in the air, mapping these incidents with real-time, accurate mapping for that acreage we discussed, and even modeling if there are no fire suppression efforts. This fire is expected to go this far in this amount of time, possibly this number of homes will be in the path. And it gives our incident commanders on the ground real-time intelligence to use to fight that fire. Versus the old days, waiting for people to physically map that fire and use our helicopters who are also doing reconnaissance and water drops and rescues. So this has been a very nice platform for that. In addition to the cameras you mentioned, Alert California is a fantastic program with whom we're partners. And throughout the states, they have approximately 1,000 they call pan, tilt, zoom cameras in place. So those areas where maybe might not have somebody there as a fire watch tower in the old days, there's cameras out there. And so if we have a report of a fire, we can use those cameras to find out if these are actionable events or if they're false reports, if you will. So those are just two of the products we use right now that have had great success, not only here, but throughout the state of California. And again, all that depends on these partnerships we have with private, public, state, local, federal, all of that. It's not one entity doing it by itself. We're all doing it together.
Orange County, California is an interesting area. I've reported in this county for years. You've got over 30 cities. You have now over 3 million people. You've got the 405 freeway, the 5 freeway, the 73, the toll roads. You've got so much of a concrete jungle. You've got suburbia, all the houses being built in South County, but set against the backdrop of this urban sprawl wildland interface. Is it tough to manage that sort of situation when you've got homes and a freeway and buildings right against this wildland area, Captain Doran?
Well, is it difficult? That's just part of our job. I mean, we have to be realistic here. No matter where it is, if it's not here, if it's 100 miles out, there's going to be a line where the communities butt up against wildland. That's going to happen, whether it's 1 mile in or 2 miles to the east. So even from the original days of Orange County being here, the wildland-urban interface is a very real factor, and that's true throughout the state and the country as well. So the way we mitigate that is pre-planning. So that pre-fire management we talked about, our community risk reduction, the fire codes, the building codes, adapting to these new environments, and getting more creative and addressing those concerns farther and farther out. We know that especially when those wind events come in and we have the very low humidity, the high winds, the high temperatures for days on end, and that vegetation's drying out, we know the potential for embers being strewn possibly miles ahead of the fire exists. So a big focus is on what can we do for your home in that wildland-urban interface. If that firebrand or ember does come, how can we prevent it from starting a fire in your home? Because we can prevent that fire from starting, it won't start the house next to it on fire and have that conflagration that we talk about. So it's not anything new. This is something that we deal with as firefighters and the country deals with, because the fact is, humans and the environment, we're here to coexist. We have to have that flex, that creativity, that dynamic stance, if you will, to make sure we're always ahead of the game or at least in line with it.
And in our remaining 30 seconds, with all that said, what is your final message to our viewers, to we the public, whether it's about OCFA, whether it's about keeping us safe or what we should do? What do you really want to have us know?
Well, we are one fire department of many. However, one theme that is constant across all fire service, and especially here in Orange County, is the pride. We take this job seriously. We defend our communities, and we can't thank you enough for your past actions and in advance for the community's partnership with us, for that being part of the Ready, Set, Go programs, for reaching out for education, for being there with us as we work to prevent injuries and destruction and damage to homes from wildfires. We can do this together, and Orange County has been awesome.
Well, I've always said it, you guys are heroes. Thank you so much for taking care of us. Thank you so much, Captain Sean Doran with the Orange County Fire Authority, for your interview.